Hello and howdy, and welcome to another edition of our continuing series of podcasts. Put right on your computer as soon as you subscribe at focusedpassion.com. Finding Yourself in Paradise is the podcast, and Steve, welcome to Paradise.
Well, it's wonderful to be here in Paradise, Michael. I'm Steve Snyder. I'm here with my pal, Michael Benner, and we're talking about finding yourself in paradise. Now, the focus in this show is going to be the self part more than the paradise part. We're going to talk about it all, but our topic today is self-esteem.
Self-esteem, what you think of yourself. A lot of folks believe it doesn't matter what you think of yourself, that the only thing that really matters are other people's opinions of who we are, who we appear to be. In fact, some people go to extraordinary lengths to live a life of appearances, as if there's something substantial in that. But Steve and I are going to suggest that there is certainly a degree of truth and merit in all of that, but primary to it is what you think of yourself and the substance deep at the heart and the soul of your perception of who you really are.
Your perception of who you really are. That's the most important concept here. You see, your self-esteem is an opinion. It's not a fact. It's not like, oh, my self-esteem is at 8.37. Your self-esteem is whatever you want it to be. Whatever your opinion of you is, that's your self-esteem. So, you could look at yourself and analyze yourself and say, well, accurately, as I look at who I am, I see that 43% of the things I do I'm good at, and 57% of the things I do I'm not good at, so I should have kind of like medium to low self-esteem. Well, no. Your self-esteem is where you focus your attention. So if you focus your attention on those things that you're really good at, put most of your energy into thinking about things that you like to do and you do well, then you'll have high self-esteem. But if you focus your attention on those things that you're not gifted at, that you're doing that don't feel right, or you're not following your heart, they don't seem like the things you need to be doing, then you're going to have low self-esteem. It's just a matter of opinion. Whatever you feel about yourself, wherever you're putting your attention, that's where your self-esteem will go.
Just a matter of opinion, and yet that's the most important part. I mean, one of the basic suppositions in psychology, most psychology, and certainly all mind science is that at the end of the day, perception is reality and reality is perception. That for whatever objective quality science can agree upon to so-called reality, we're having personal experiences, and that's what really matters. That's the reality that we have to deal with.
Even if perception is not reality, it sure seems enough like it that you might as well, believe that two people experience the same event, in totally different ways based on the attitude they have and they take into that event. So perception is reality. I mean, when two people see the same thing, one person thinks something horrible is happening and the other person thinks something exciting is happening. That's the same event, two different realities. So in that respect, perception is reality. And then, of course, from perception comes response. That is, the person who just knee-jerks when they see something versus the person who perceives and then thinks about that perception and chooses their response. That's the difference.
You're taking it to level 2, and that's exactly where I think we should go with it. Let's just, again, reemphasize this very first entry point as we discuss self-esteem, which is, of course you're biased. You're supposed to be. This is not an election. This is your responsibility. Really, your responsibility to decide who you are based on how you feel about yourself and your discernment and your heartfelt understanding of who you are. It's like the sign I often quote in the bakery in Big Sur that says, chew your food well. If you don't, who will? Well, if you don't have an accurate and honest and heartfelt opinion of yourself and who you are, what you're for, and what you're capable of, then how could we turn that over to somebody else?
Really? Bob Dylan said you shouldn't let other people get your kicks for you. It's like you have the choice of liking yourself as much as you want to. You could like yourself a whole lot or like yourself just a little bit. You have a choice. What's the advantage in choosing to like yourself only a little bit when you could choose to like yourself a whole lot? Now, I can tell you the advantage of choosing to like yourself a whole lot. And there's a lot of advantages. And one is you function better. I mean, you do things more effectively. When you like yourself, when you feel good about yourself, you get in the zone. You get in that state of focused passion easily. Because when you like yourself, one of the major stressors of your life falls away. That's called, I don't like myself. And that feeling bad about yourself is such a stressor that when you release that and feel good about yourself, all of a sudden you let go of physical tension, you let go of emotional anxiety, you let go of mental confusion, you replace it with relaxation, calmness, peace of mind, and clarity. It's amazing what happens, how easy it feels to do things when you feel good versus when you're feeling bad. I mean, it's pretty simple.
It's funny, I think that it's pretty much a common sense thing to believe that emotion follows an event. Like I choose to go do something, and then depending on how well I do, I have a feeling that somehow reflects how well I did. Now we understand with all of the research, especially in big universities and other research institutions in the last 25 or 30 years, if you lead with the feeling, you do better. You get a so-called winner's edge, or a mental edge.
Throw your heart over and let your brain follow.
Yeah, like the old guy that used to steeplechase and jump the horses. Yeah. He said, I just throw my heart over the fence and the horse follows. We have to do that with ourselves and be proactive and initiate these feelings. To feel like a winner is to create a winner.
Yeah. Now, it's important to understand that just like deciding, I'm going to have really high self-esteem about my ability in math when I'm really bad at math, that's not real. You know you're not really good at math. So you don't want to just say, I'm the best math person in the world and actually try and hang your self-esteem on that, because it's not true. It may become true one day. You may become great at math one day. And if you say that to yourself, then you'll get better and better. But you want to hang your self-esteem on something you're really good at naturally. You know, the focus on the things that your heart calls for you to do, those things that you are always good at, it was always easy for you to learn. Focus on those things first in terms of building your self-esteem. In the school system, the idea of giving everybody an A is a stupid idea. You know, you don't build self-esteem by lying to yourself. You build self-esteem by focusing on those areas that you're strong at so you feel good about yourself. And then once you're feeling good about yourself, you can bring those good feelings about yourself into those areas where you don't feel so good about yourself. It's like greatness at any endeavor spills over into every endeavor.
Exactly. Self-esteem has to be an accurate and honest personal assessment.
Exactly.
And it's not personal to the extent of having no interaction at all with other people. Watching how other people react and interact with you, of course, is part of developing an honest and accurate assessment of who you are, who likes me, who doesn't like me, what's my potential to become this or that or the other thing. Just sort of finding yourself. I wish there was more in parenting and schools and society in general about giving young people the latitude to really find who they are.
Let me tell you a great story. I had this a couple come to me with their child who's 13 years old, and he's a great athlete. I mean, he's got potential for being really maybe even masterful one day. You know, 13, he's too soon to say, but he's really not very good in math. You know, he has trouble with even division. He can add and subtract, but 13 years old, he's having trouble with long division and decimal places. He's just not, math isn't coming to him, you know, and he's just bored to death. And he's sitting in his math class daydreaming about sports, you know. So what the parents wanted to do was take him out of sports and make him focus on math and bring a math tutor home and give him twice as much math in his day.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
I disagree with it, and you're going to tell us why we should disagree with it, but you see the temptation.
I do. I see the temptation. It's like sports aren't that important compared to math. I mean, and so let's really focus on... But what I suggested instead was that let the kid focus on sports and bring a sports tutor home to teach the kid about batting averages and earned run percentages and how many times the guy has to run with the ball to earn 1,000 yards if he's only running 3.2 yards per carry. And the kid just loved learning math. All of a sudden, it's sports. It's not math, it's sports. Exactly.
It had meaning in his life.
And he became really good at math and really good at sports. And you don't have to punish somebody because they don't have a strength in a certain area. Instead, help them develop their weaknesses through their strengths.
And to understand that motivation and learning is emotional.
Yeah. We learn when there's passion, focused passion, hence the website, hence our whole concept of focused passion.
In all subjects and all topics, whether it's math and science or literature or music, geography or history, the humanities, emotions is the power factor. The energy, so to speak, the ideation is the material, the facts, the information. But students have to care. They have to be motivated. They have to be stakeholders in this information. Right. Like, this is my world history, or this is my quadratic equation. I love cross multiplication or whatever. So I was lucky. I loved math because I thought it did cool things. And it was really reliable.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing. It's so reliable. Yeah. It's always going to be the same.
It was crisp and clean and neat and either right or not. I just...
Where with language, with words, you know, the word could have 100 different meanings to 100 different people. So,
way too subjective.
But 8 is always 8, you know?
So let the girls do the words and the guys will do the words. And there is a lot of that, actually.
I love them both. But
gender-specific learning. But the idea here of the self-esteem, I have to say that I think in the casting about in the last 20 years to understand the role of self-esteem in the classroom, the pendulum perhaps did swing too far, or maybe it was just a media myth. I'm not sure there were that many situations where everybody got a trophy and everybody got an A. I think that's sort of a urban myth of the talk show variety.
It's certainly a bad idea.
It's a horrible idea. And let's even think out why. I mean, just be reasonable. What if we did have a classroom where no matter how much, I mean, Joey's goofing off and back and never applies himself and he's getting an A, and the kids that are working hard to get A's, how do you think they're going to feel about that? And the dynamics in the classroom that would erupt out of that would just be untenable.
You know, how the smart kids would feel is one issue. I mean, they'd feel really ripped off because, you know, they worked their butts off to get their A, and this guy, the joker in the back of the classroom, is getting an A for no work. But what scares me, not is what they're going to think. They'll be angry. But what scares me is what the goof-off in the back of the classroom is going to get from this. I goof off, I do nothing, and I get an A. Well, what kind of lessons does that teach them for work? You know, like, what's the boss? Well, you know, I mean, I get rewarded for doing half-ass work. I mean, this is a very bad example to give children. And yet, if we tell this kid he's a goof-off and he's good for nothing and he's bad and discipline him, then we're losing a kid, as the school system often does. Instead, we need to find some redeeming quality in this kid. He's got a talent, he's got a gift, he's got an ability he hasn't found yet, maybe. We got to help him find it, because we got to help this kid be good at something. And so he can get an A in something. Everybody can get an A in something. And we need to help them find that something.
Some people might argue that with you, but I happen to agree with you. And I would say it's a failure of a testing system or some sort of education system if it can't seem to discern the peak potential in any given little boy or little girl. It just doesn't, there's just no evidence that a human being can be born into this world without some sort of gift or talent. We're all beautiful, we're all loving. To a large extent, humanity all wants the same things. And the idea that some are just defective or inferior, that is a paradigm that doesn't serve anybody, I don't think.
I think it's really true that some people have no talent in math or history or science or English or any of those like subjects in school. But maybe this person would be the most magnificent mother or father. Maybe this person would be the most magnificent person who could listen to somebody's problems and help them and be empathetic to their problem. Maybe this person has tremendous talents that you can't measure on a report card.
Yeah. Gardner's learning styles.
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
Howard Gardner, brilliant man, innovator in the field of intelligence.
Some people are just so wonderfully musically talented.
Yep.
That, they may have a hard time in math. I mean, Einstein was forgetful. and disorganized. So you're going to mark them down for that? Actually, yeah, they did. The school, he had a tough time, didn't he?
They marked him way, way down for that kind of stuff. And, you know, Mark Twain said, I never let my schooling get in the way of my education. You know,
so very, very smart. So, and not to get off on a tangent about schools needing to step up, but
they do.
The industrial age is over, people, and we don't need kids learning to do things in lockstep the same way, to the same degree, for the same reasons, for the same teachers. We need school systems that are going to encourage children to think for themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way
Absolutely.
to say it. And self-esteem is thinking for yourself, about yourself.
About yourself. And let's give kudos to those teachers and those school systems that are doing good work in understanding multiple intelligences and different learning styles and all that kind of stuff. You know, one size does not fit all, and more educators are finally getting that. But, you know, we really need to make a shift. But in terms of self-esteem, that philosophy they used to have about giving everybody a reward for whatever they did, that doesn't work. But what does work is finding something in every kid that you can reward, because there is something wonderful in every child, and maybe it's something that would be of incredible value to them when they get older, even if it's not measured in geography or history or math.
Well, a lot of young people seem to really love video games. Now, what's the reward in a video game? More excitement? On to the next level? More challenges? I don't suppose that a classroom 6 or 8 hours a day can be as stimulating as a video game, certainly. And maybe there'd be some merit in even slowing those video games down a little bit. But the idea is motivation is emotional. Again, there's got to be some oh boy to education, some oh boy to learning academics and scholastics, and some golly gee whiz to understanding who I am as a unique being.
Yeah.
Like you in some ways, very different from Sally and Peter over here in other ways, but vive la différence.
Absolutely. And even take the example of the video game. You can learn tremendous skills in a video game. I'm not real pleased with much of the content. A lot of it's way too violent for my taste. But you learn focus. You learn persistence. You learn how to follow a thread of logic and solve a problem. You learn memory skill. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful skills you develop in focusing that intensely with that much passion on anything. So it's just, I mean, TV is not a bad medium. There's a lot of junk on TV. But anything that causes you to focus your passion and learn something valuable to you, it can be a good medium. 6 hours of video games, I think that's ridiculous. As I think 6 hours of listening to a school teacher talk is ridiculous as well. You know, that's an absurd method of trying to school our children.
Well, of course, we've talked on many occasions, and will continue to, about the whole idea of brainwave states, of paradise as being a focused state, focused passion. But we got to run through the gears, and sometimes we want to be in high beta, and sometimes a low beta or a high alpha, and then there's even theta levels that we can talk about and have, as a matter of fact. So it's what's appropriate in brainwave levels, too. Too much stimulation can burn kids out. We see a lot of ADD in the classroom, so we have to, again, teach about breath and relaxation.
And understand, too, that ADD is not really attention deficit disorder. There's no disorder involved. ADHD is another factor altogether, but with the hyperactivity. But ADD, attention deficit, is just a difference in learning styles. It's not a disorder. It's a shorter attention span. It's not a bad thing to have. It's just the school system's not really designed to deal with it. That's the problem. So they drug children oft times.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It's a great way. Kids find ways to get attention, and it's a great way to get attention.
Yeah.
You know, we should also talk just a little bit about the flip side of this. There may be people listening who think that the best way to be in the world, the most effective way you can be, is not to have self-esteem, but to be self-loathing, to be self-critical, to be hard on yourself, to be tough on yourself. You know, yeah, sure, I hit my kids. Look at me. I got hit, didn't do me any damage. Well, yeah, it did. You're hitting your kids, as a matter of fact. But let's address that a little bit. Is there any benefit at all in being negative or hard on yourself? I mean, having said that these assessments need to be honest and accurate and truthful, what's the deal with putting yourselves down?
There's one huge advantage. And it's really to a whole lifestyle of pessimism, basically, of not wanting to get your hopes up, not wanting to think good things are going to happen, always being braced for the worst, always being critical of yourself so that you don't get too big of an opinion of yourself. The whole idea of pessimism is to protect ourselves because we're afraid of disappointment. You know, we're afraid of getting our hopes up too high because we'll be dashed. Well, here's the thing. There is one huge payoff, or all these people wouldn't be critical of themselves. They wouldn't be in this pessimistic mode of thinking. There's got to be a payoff for that. Lots of people are this way. And there's one huge payoff, and that is when you are critical of yourself, when you are low self-esteem, when you are pessimistic about the world, something happens, and that is you virtually always get to be right. That you create, through self-fulfilling prophecy, failure. When you think things are going to screw up, guess what? You find a way to make that happen.
Sabotage.
You cannot guarantee success. You can do everything right, but there's other people involved. There's society. There's the economy. You can do everything right and not succeed, but you can always find a way to fail. You can always find a way to throw a monkey wrench in the works. And if you have a concept that it's going to screw up again, it always does. I'm so bad at these things, then somehow you'll find a way to trip and fall and make sure that one moment of salvation that pessimists get, the whole life based on their one moment of salvation, which is that, see, I told you so, I was right, I knew it would fail.
Wow, that's pathetic. If that's the big reward in life.
That's it. You see, it's a moment of guaranteed happiness. To the optimist, as odd as it sounds, to the optimist who lives a life of being happy, there's no guaranteed happiness.
But it's devoid of love, so it's not real happiness.
Well, you're right. I mean, but for the pessimist, they live for that moment, that I told you so moment, that I was right moment. And they know that's coming. It's going to come every single time. They always get to be right.
That's not love.
I know, it's not. But in place of love, it's like their next best thing, I think. They just don't know how easy it is to get your hopes up really, really, really high and be disappointed. They don't understand that there's no big deal to that. There's a nothing thing to being disappointed. I mean, think about this. We've talked often about having two different minds. The subconscious mind doesn't know real from imaginary. So when you dream, it really thinks what you're dreaming is happening. When you dream you're falling, your heart beats fast, and your adrenaline flows, and your stomach drops. I mean, it really thinks it's happening. So a few weeks ago, I had a dream I've had many times in my life, and in this dream, I could fly. I could fly, like Superman over the Rocky Mountains. I was soaring. It was the most exhilarating, exciting. And, you know, some dreams are, like, really more real than others. This was a very realistic dream. It felt so... I could feel the wind in my face. I could feel the wetness of the clouds as I flew through them. It was so alive, so real, and I was enjoying it so much. And then I woke up, and I couldn't fly. And, you know, for a moment there, I mean, you know, in that place in between awake and dreams, I was really disappointed. I was flying, and now I can't fly. So what? I got over it pretty darn quickly, you know?
Well, because you're a healthy guy, what it brings up is those people for whom their self-esteem is not self-esteem, but the approval of other people. And so they continue to be concerned about what other people would think. And that can be terrifying. That can be, we talked about fear last week. Boy, the exaggerated, distorted shadow. Maybe it's just a little mouse that ran behind the fire.
Yeah.
But the shadow it cast was as big as a house, not a mouse. And it was all scary and distorted and, of course, vague because it was a shadow. And people who are concerned unduly about what other people think of us are suffering that inordinate fear.
Yeah, so let's say it does matter what other people think of us. To some extent, it certainly does. But at what point does it become more important what I think of me than what other thinks of me? At what point does my opinion of me matter more than anybody else's? I mean, at some point it's got to happen that way, right? If you think about it, at some point, if anybody's opinion of me would be the single most important opinion of me, it would be me, right? How could anyone argue that? So at some point, that's got to be the goal at least.
Some people won't give themselves permission to do that. They think that if they become full of themselves. If they like themselves too much, they'll become arrogant and pompous, and then nobody will like them.
But that's the myth, because, you see, arrogant and pompous people are people who don't like themselves very much, and they're overcompensating for that. People who really like themselves they have humility. They're humble people. People who really, really like themselves don't have to brag. You brag because you don't really like yourself, and you want other people to like you so that you can like yourself more. Again, that's the other people stuff. So here's the idea.
Ever play small?
Oh, yeah.
Have you?
Yeah, I have. Absolutely.
See, lots of times we play small to help other people.
Graham Nash said, "Feel a little smaller, and in stature you will rise."
And I really like the Marianne Williamson quote about you really don't benefit anyone by playing small, by hiding your light under a bushel, pretending you're less than who you really are. Let your love light shine.
Yeah. And when it does, it lights up for other people, too.
Takes nothing away from other people to be wonderful.
Absolutely. In fact, it helps everybody pick one more role model to take a look at it and understand that you are a role model, like it or not. I mean, everybody that sees you, to some extent, is influenced by you, and some people are very influenced by you, like your family. And it's not about what you say, because you can espouse whatever philosophy you want to espouse, but your children they hear those words, but what they're looking at is what you're doing and how you're feeling and how you're behaving. And if you love yourself, if you have confidence and feel high self-worth and feel a sense of respect for yourself, a sense of dignity, a sense of integrity about yourself, if you feel that way, you walk that way, that's what your kids are going to learn.
One other thing I'd like to talk about before our audio journey. The not uncommon family, where this is not an issue, because as children are brought into this family, mom and dad already have decided what's in store for this young person, okay? And will live vicariously through the child, saying things like, "Oh, I just want you to have all the things I never did," but really needing the child to succeed where they have failed, and never giving the kid any permission to explore who they really are as unique individuals and what they really, really want. How can we help people who realize that they've been essentially parented as chattel, as property?
Wow. You know, this is really, for both you and myself, really a touchy subject. You know, we both are very, very strong in our feelings about the need to change the way so many children are parented in this world, and you know, it's mostly ignorance. I mean, it's not mostly evil, parents. It's mostly ignorant parents. It's mostly parents who don't know how to parent because they never learned how to parent.
It's well-intentioned.
My brother married a woman who is brilliant in this field. She has an organization called TIPP, T-I-P-P, the Institute for Professional Parenting, teaching classes for decades now on how to parent your kids. I mean, here's what you do if you want to create a sociopathic kid. Here's what you do if you want to create a borderline kid. Now, don't do these things. Do this instead. And I got to tell you, people have lots of theories and talk about lots of stuff, but the proof to me is that my nephew, her kid, is one of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life. He's brilliant, he's humble, he's talented, he's a magnificent human being. I'm so proud of my nephew. And he was parented by the philosophy that Faye espouses. So, we can't go into all the parenting stuff right now, but this is a great resource for you, a tip, and I'm telling you, take a tip. Check it out.
Well, I think we can make the point that there's really not much controversy among professionals, the mental health community, brain, mind researchers, mind scientists, philosophers, and psychologists are pretty much clear that a self-actualized or healthy self-realized life that fundamental to the expression of who we are as individuals is an honest, accurate self-assessment that is largely free from the influence of other people. Those are always factors, what other people think, but clearly they're secondary factors. That the primary factor in self-esteem is just that. It's self-esteem. It's a job that we just cannot delegate to other people. That's our primary responsibility. A little bit like the story we tell of the oxygen mask on the airplane, where be sure yours is on before you go around helping other people. Have a healthy attitude about yourself before you seek the approval of other people. We may want that, but when we need the approval of other people, that may mean we're not doing the self-assessment we should be.
Have a healthy attitude about yourself. Now think about attitude. Attitude is clearly a choice, right? I mean, it's not like somebody puts an attitude on you. You pick, essentially, an attitude to have about whatever it is that you pick your attitude about. Pick an attitude about yourself that, yes, I see all of myself. I see my flaws. I see my strengths. I see my weaknesses. I see my talents. I see it all. But my opinion of all of this is good. Even though I know there's some areas where I don't function all that well, I feel confident I'm going to build those areas up and shore those areas up in my life. And in these areas where I'm doing real well, I'm feeling real confident that I'm going to get better and better in these areas of my life. So overall, I choose to have an attitude about who I am as a work in progress that I like. In fact, I like a lot. And I'm liking more all the time. That's an attitude that's not a lie. It's just a choice. Seeing all my flaws, seeing all my strengths, but choosing to have a real positive attitude about that big picture that I see. That's not inappropriate self-esteem. That's real self-esteem based on a real assessment of who you are and choosing the attitude with which to perceive that.
There's a beautiful quotation, I would say, as I recall, 19th century Hindu mystic named Ramana Maharshi. And I can only paraphrase him, but it's something like, to try to change the world without reforming first yourself is a bit like protecting your feet by covering the world with leather. It's just easier to put on shoes.
Yeah, you don't have to cover the whole world with leather.
No,
just the bottom of your feet will do.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
This is self-reliance. This is self-respect. This is self-love.
Yeah.
Certainly self-confidence. How could we get any of these? Self-confidence, self-esteem, self-love, self-trust, self-respect from other people through a performance.
Exactly. I mean, and even if other people see the performance we did, and we know, objectively even, it was a really good performance. I mean, everybody said, they applauded, they liked it, but we're trying to please our dad, who just is not pleasable. You know, there are some people who just, no matter what you do, they aren't. And if your self-respect, if your self-esteem is based on dad's approval, then you could be the best you could possibly be and still never like yourself. You got to take away the power that you give to other people about deciding whether you like yourself or not.
Well, especially since you gave them that power in the first place. So it's not even taken away. It's like stop empowering them to make you feel that.
Or at least give the power only to your fans, you know.
Case study, I had a client, we were working on prosperity. And he had a block just under the surface, wasn't really aware of it. Had been at one time, I think, but lost it. So again, I'm thinking it's an unconscious block, but just sort of under the surface, because it came up pretty quickly. As we relaxed and had him reflect on his perceptions about money and prosperity and such, he began to realize that he was limiting his income so that he would not make more than his father had ever made. For he felt that that would somehow embarrass his father, even though his father was no longer alive.
Wow. I have actually a very similar story about myself.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, when I was 12, as you well know, my dad left, abandoned the family, never said goodbye, never saw him again. And, of course, I was, really hurt and really angry and really upset. But I remember thinking in my anger, I'll show that SOB, I'm going to get famous. I'm going to get famous, and he's going to be really sorry he wasn't around to see that happen. He's going to one day he'll read in the newspaper or something, he'll regret it. Well, I didn't know I was carrying that, but it was there, and I was sort of driven by that all my life to get people to know who I am and to I focus more on them knowing my stuff more than knowing me, but, getting my stuff
right.
out there,
Right.
and getting my stuff famous, this alpha stuff. And one day, a few years ago, I was honored by this incredible, wonderful organization called Vistage. It used to be called the Executive Committee. It's the world's largest organization of CEOs, presidents of companies, and they honored me as the International Speaker of the Year. Out of like thousands and thousands of speakers, I was the number one that year. And all of a sudden, it occurred to me, among the people that I work with, I'm famous. And all of a sudden it hit me like, I remember that thing I said when I was a little kid about, I'll show him, I'll be famous. And it hit me, I was like, I'm famous. And all of a sudden this huge weight was lifted off my soul, of my spirit. I just felt like I could float. I just felt like I'm done. I don't have to be the chipmunk in the cage anymore. I don't have to try so. I did it. I can coast now. I made it to the top of the hill.
Mission accomplished.
What an amazing feeling that was. And I was trying to please a son of a bitch who deserted me when I was 12 years old. I was letting his opinion of me, and it turned out he died in 87, as it turned out. I let his opinion of me, even after he died, influence me. We can't do that. We have to, and I know this stuff, and I still let it happen. We got to grab hold and let our self-esteem be based on our self-esteem.
Well, it's an excellent point, and let's underscore it, because the truth is children are dependent.
Yes.
Upon adults for approval and acceptance,
yes.
As it should be.
That's why I said, when does it become your opinion more important than others? Because at first, it's not.
Adolescence,
yeah.
Supposedly, if we get enough approval and unconditional acceptance, then we transition into people who are emotionally more independent
right.
and self-reliant when it comes to things like confidence and self-esteem. But many of us did not get that in childhood, and so there is a so-called codependence that carries into adulthood, a childlike behavior of trying to get what we can only bestow upon ourselves,
right.
Only accept that we, in fact, already have within
right.
us love, trust, respect, confidence, talents, and abilities.
Oz never did give nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have.
It's a matter of allowing yourself to accept that at some point. And sometimes it's hearing a podcast like this that's the only thing that's necessary to go, oh, I get it. All I have to do is decide that
I like
in spite of
more.
my past, I'm okay, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
Here's a model that I find helps a lot of people. Imagine me, I'll say it this way, imagine me putting my hands flat, parallel to the floor, side by side. As I say, you're not better than or worse than, raising and lowering one hand relative to the other. You're not superior to, you're not inferior to. You're just different from. And imagine spreading the hands out laterally. It's such a simple model, and yet it can be confusing for a lifetime. If you're not better than somebody, well, then I must be inferior to them. Oh, there's a possibility we could be in the same category pretty much. But then there's this person over here, and I've got to either be better than them or inferior to them. And you're not. It's all so irrelevant. This isn't the Olympics, or some kind of contest. We are a single family called humanity. We have fingerprint evidence and DNA proof of our absolute uniqueness and individuality. Let's separate that. Celebrate. There's a Freudian slip.
Let's celebrate.
Celebrate that appearance of separation, I'll say it that way.
Nicely said.
And individuality. It's one of the paradoxes we often talk about, that as energy beings, there's one thing at work, one intelligence that supports and illumines all things. Quantum physics has even proved that, besides 6,000 years of metaphysics.
Sure. We got 4 fingers and a thumb that are all very different from each other, but, all unique, but they're all part of the hand.
That's right.
They're all part of the hand.
And so both things are true, somewhat paradoxical. We are the one, we are the many, both at the same time. So if you're not going to celebrate that you are unique, then who's going to do that for you?
Absolutely. And what's the benefits of having higher self-esteem? Meaning, what's the benefits of having a higher opinion of yourself than you currently do? Now, that doesn't mean for no reason. That means focusing in on those things that you have done well and that you intend to do well. You can like yourself for what you intend to do too, for the changes you plan on making and expect to make in your life. So it's not false self-esteem to focus on the good stuff instead of mostly focusing on the bad stuff. We all have both. But what are the advantages of focusing on the good stuff? What's the advantages of more self-esteem? Somebody asked me that a long, long time ago, and I tried to put it into as simple an equation as I can. And to me, when you like yourself more, what happens is you live in focused passion more. And when you live in focused passion more, you are better, faster, smarter, and happier with far less stress and much more passion. That's the simplest answer I can come up with. Whatever it is you do well, you'll be better at. Whatever it is you do quickly, you'll be faster at. Whatever it is you're smart at, you'll be smarter at. Now, that doesn't mean you'll be smart at things you were stupid at, but it means you'll be smarter at the things you were already smart at. Better, faster, smarter, and overall happier. Because you see, when you have high self-esteem, what happens is you learn to like your negative thoughts because you can release them, and you learn to like your positive thoughts because you can embrace them. And in learning to like all of your thoughts, well, that's really what happiness is about. Happiness is not what you think about yourself. Happiness is what you think about what you think about yourself.
There you go. Acceptance is an important word in this area as well. I want to say wrestle or struggle, but that's not right. We sort of massage the word in philosophy a lot, acceptance. It really helps to think of accepting, again, truthfully, accurately, honestly, your best discernment of who you really are as a place to begin, not a place to end.
Exactly. And that's the basic concept we're talking about now, that you can have increased self-esteem based on what you plan to become, what you commit to, what you, in your integrity, know you're going to grow into becoming. And so you don't have to base it all on your past. You can base it on your present and your belief in what you can create in your life. Like who you are and like even more who you can become.
Let's do an audio journey.
I think that's the cue. So, as you probably know by now, this is about finding yourself in paradise. So, the first step in all the audio journeys is to close your eyes, to get out of out there so you can get into in here. George Harrison said, it's so far out, the way out is in. So, go into yourself. Closing your eyes makes it easy to do that. Take a deep breath. And as you release, start to let it all slow down as you find yourself in this paradise place of perfect peace.
Within you, without you. In your mind's eye, visualize, not through any effort, certainly not by trying, but by relaxing and allowing, an image of a most beautiful paradise to occur to you, to pop right into your mind. And the feeling you're making it up is exactly the right feeling.
Relax your mind and float downstream. Allow your mind to unwind in paradise, where you are safe, where all that surrounds you is in harmony with you. You appreciate the beauty of all that you see, all that you hear, all that you smell, all that you feel. You can even taste the freshness of the air. And you feel at peace. Body relaxed, emotions calm, mind clear, at peace. You. This is you. You have found yourself here in paradise.
You are in control of the letting go. Feel the letting go from the top of your head to the soles of your feet, like butter gently softening toward its center on a warm day.
This is yourself here, relaxed, calm, feeling good. Notice how you feel good, that you choose to have an attitude about yourself, that you really like yourself and you really are proud of yourself, and you accept yourself for all your flaws and all your strengths, for all your weaknesses and all your talents. You accept yourself for who you are, and you're really excited, really, I mean, deep down, really excited about who you are becoming.
Imagine as you sit upon the earth in this beautiful place and feel rooted, connected. Imagine energy lines that, like roots of a tree or even a blade of grass, reach deep into the earth. Ground yourself, feel plugged in and connected to the common ground here. And as you look to the horizon, you see now, just now, off in the distance, way off in the distance, coming over the horizon, an individual.
Coming closer to you, and at first you aren't sure who this is, but there's something familiar, something oddly familiar about this individual as they come closer. And now as they start to come actually into sight to where you can make out their facial features, closer. You notice
and closer.
They seem even more and more familiar, more and more strangely familiar, until you realize this is you. But no, it's not. It's an older version of you, a more mature, more senior version of you. It's you, but it's you sometime in the future, coming to you now.
With a subtle gesture, welcome this individual. Ask them to sit here with you on the ground.
Share the paradise.
And you're not quick to speak. The silence seems appropriate, feels needed right now.
And comfortable in a way that only you could be with yourself. And you're looking at this future version of you, appreciating the healthy glow in their face, the way they hold their carriage with pride and dignity. They strike you as someone who is wise and someone who has lots of wonderful experiences and stories to tell. They just seem like someone you're really interested in and feel a great chemistry with. This is a very special being that has come now to join you in paradise.
He seems very much like you, maybe 20, 30, maybe 35 years older.
She seems very much like you, but more confident, more powerful some way.
And when you're ready, as you become ready, and while we allow you the room to do this, ask this individual how you might be able to help them, why they have come to visit you in your place of perfect peace. Is there anything I can do for you? Offer your services and listen and look for a response.
It might be spoken words, might be just a gesture. Maybe there's a sort of telepathy that exists between you and this future you. But somehow you know. You know what this future you would like you to do, would like you to become.
You can also imagine that they have some advice for you, general to specific, somewhere in the middle, somewhere, maybe very general, maybe quite specific. Some sort of advice for you. It might be more practical, it might be rather theoretical. Could be about commerce and industry and work, market stuff, might be more about relationships, could be about parenting and children, or your hobbies, your avocations. Do they have a suggestion or two for you.
And before parting ways, for now, with this future you, just sit back and listen as the future you shares with you gratitude for the great start that you have given this future you, that for the talents and gifts and abilities that you had, that you unveiled and uncovered during your life that allowed this future you to prosper, to become fulfilled, to live a life not just of success but of significance. And the future you thanks you for the way you handled the relationships in your life and is grateful to you for the way you handled your career path and very, very proud of you for the way you became an even better and better parent, learning the lessons of parenting and understanding and feeling so happy that you took the advice and started to become healthier, ate more effectively, and exercised and took better care of yourself and handled your stress better. And you just listening, basking in the compliments from your future self, letting you know how proud you are of you for all that you have initiated that allows this future self to manifest and become.
And then imagine that the two of you stand. And either shake hands or embrace. And as the future you, the older, wiser, more experienced sense of self, begins to walk away, they pause just long enough to say to you something that sounds very much like, I'm really happy and proud to be the person you've become.
Hear that? Echoing. I'm really, really happy and proud to be the person you've become.
And let them go as they walk away, returning to their place and time, allowing you to follow my voice and Steve's voice in a matter of moments back to the waking state, to normal consciousness.
With a sense of self-esteem perhaps a little higher than it was before you began, and with the thought that perhaps your sense of self-esteem will get higher and greater and grander and sweeter and more delicious every day from now on.
It's an easy thing to carry, appropriate, true, honest, accurate. Self-esteem, a sense of why you're lovable, trustworthy, and deserving of respect. Take a nice, slow, deep breath and pull in strength and power as you inhale, hold as you peak.
And as it feels comfortable for you, open your eyes and come back to wide awake. Feeling good.
Eyes open, wide awake,
feeling good.
Fine, good. Well,
in fact, feeling great.
I like myself.
Yeah, I love myself. and you know, there are some areas of my life I could look at and start to feel not as good about myself, and I do look at those areas of my life. But you know what? I look at them when I'm feeling the strongest, not when I'm feeling the weakest.
Yeah, and that best sense of who we are is the point of view that you can choose to look at yourself from. Give it some consideration. And join us every week for the Finding Yourself in Paradise podcast. We'll bring it to your very paradise on your computer. Share it with your friends and tell them to visit focusedpassion.com. They can subscribe on their own for 99 cents a week, billed monthly. It's under $4 a month for Finding Yourself in Paradise at focusedpassion.com.
And remember, self-esteem is just a matter of opinion. Yours.
As always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. This is Michael Benner.
And this is Steve Snyder.